What would you say if a cop walked up to you tonight and said, "Relax, we just want to talk"? If you answer the wrong way, you can hand them the case against you. One friendly conversation can turn into handcuffs, charges, and words you can never take back. Before I reveal the exact words, hit subscribe right now so you can find this video again when you actually need it. And tap like, because your brain will not remember this under stress unless you hear it more than once. Here's what you're about to learn. The one question that tells you if you're trapped or free. The one sentence that shuts down phishing questions. The lawyer line that can stop the interview cold. And the search line that keeps your car, your bag, and your phone from turning into evidence. Here's the reality. Cops are trained to make serious contact sound casual. They don't always start with threats. They start with a smile, a soft voice, and a line like, "You're not in trouble. We just want to clear something up." That is why this matters so much for you. When you think it's just a chat, you drop your guard. When your guard drops, you talk. When you talk, you guess. When you guess, you fill in blanks. Let me show you exactly how to stop that spiral before it starts. Now let's talk about why people get burned here. Most people hear, "We just want to talk," and think staying quiet will look guilty. So they start explaining. They say too much. They try to sound helpful. They think if they act innocent, the officer will leave. Most people have no idea that police are allowed to use your own words against you. Even if you were just nervous, confused, or trying to be polite, you need to know the difference between giving basic required info and helping build a case against yourself. If you're driving, you may have to hand over your license, registration, and insurance. In some places, if you are lawfully detained, you may have to give your name, but you do not have to chat your way into trouble. That friendly little talk can be the whole point. Your job is not to win them over. Your job is to protect your rights and leave safely. The first thing you need is a line that forces the moment into the open. You look at the officer and say this, "Officer, am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Those exact words. Memorize them. Say them calm, say them slow, say them once, then stop talking. Why does that line work so well for you? Because it makes the officer choose. If you're free to leave, then the chat is voluntary, which means you can walk away. If you're being detained, then now everyone knows this is not just friendly small talk. That matters, because your rights change depending on what kind of stop this is. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Rodriguez versus United States, the court said a traffic stop cannot be stretched out longer than needed for the reason of the stop. In plain English, once the ticket stuff is done, they don't get extra time just to go fishing unless they have a real legal reason. Watch what happens when you ask that question early. The whole tone changes. If the officer says, "You're free to go," then go. Don't stay to be polite. Don't ask if there's a problem. Don't stand there and keep talking. Just leave. If the officer says, "You're being detained," now you know this is serious. And you move to the next lines I'm going to give you. There is one warning you need here. If you're in a car stop, hand over the required documents. And if state law requires your name during a lawful detention, you may have to give it. A Supreme Court case called Hebel said that in some lawful stop situations, states can require you to identify yourself. That does not mean you have to answer where you were, who you were with, or what you were doing. It means you need to know the line between basic ID and self-incrimination, which means helping them prove a case against you. Bad way. Most drivers say, "No, I'm good. I was just coming from my friend's house. Why?" Then the officer gets a timeline, a location, and more questions to use against you. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Then the officer has to show his hand before you say anything useful. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. That one question puts pressure back where it belongs, not on you, on them. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it tells them you know the contact has rules. This is 100% legal. You're not being rude, you're being clear. And clear people are much harder to manipulate. Have you ever had an officer say something like this to you during a stop or outside your home? Drop a comment below and tell me what they said, because I want you thinking about this before it happens again. The second line you need is the one almost nobody says clearly enough. Here's exactly what you say. "I'm invoking my right to remain silent." Word for word. Not, "I don't know." Not, "Maybe I shouldn't talk." Not, "I have nothing to hide." Say the line clean. This matters because silence alone is not always enough to protect you. That shocks people, but it's true. In Salinas versus Texas, the Supreme Court said that just sitting there quiet during a voluntary police interview was not enough by itself. In plain English, if you want the right to stay silent, you need to say you're using it. That's why your exact words matter. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection. When officers start asking open-ended questions like, "Where were you last night?" or "Mind telling me why your name came up?" Once you start answering, even a little, you give them pieces. They can compare those pieces later. If you forget one detail, they call it a lie. If you guess wrong, they call it a contradiction. Here's the reality. You do not talk your way out of an investigation. You usually talk your way deeper into one. And police are trained to keep you talking with soft questions. They won't always ask, "Did you do it?" They'll ask, "Help me understand." Or, "If you didn't do anything, why not just explain?" That is the trap for you. The more normal it sounds, the more dangerous it gets. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Sure, I can explain everything." Then the officer gets your story locked in. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I am invoking my right to remain silent." Then there's no story to pick apart, twist, or compare later. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it is simple and clear. There is no guessing. There is no maybe. There is no half cooperation. And that helps you later if a judge ever looks at what happened. This is 100% legal. You are not admitting guilt. You are using a right built for regular people under stress. Now, let me make one thing crystal clear for you. Staying silent does not mean being hostile. Keep your hands visible. Keep your voice calm. Don't argue. Don't insult. Just repeat the line if needed. "I'm invoking my right to remain silent." Then stop. The silence after that is where your power lives. Watch what happens when you stop filling the air. Officers often try new angles. They may say, "Why make this harder?" Or, "Only guilty people ask for rights." That is noise. Your job is not to debate. Your job is to shut the door gently and keep it shut. The third line is the one that can change everything if the pressure keeps building. Listen closely because this is critical. You say, "I want a lawyer. I will not answer questions without my lawyer." Those exact words. Not, "Maybe I need one." Not, "Should I get one?" Not, "Do you think I need a lawyer?" You want a clear request. Why is this so powerful for you? Because once you clearly ask for a lawyer during custodial questioning, police are supposed to stop questioning you. That comes from Miranda v. Arizona and Edwards v. Arizona. In plain English, Miranda says, if police have you in custody and want to question you, you have the right to a lawyer. Edwards says, once you clearly ask for that lawyer, they are not supposed to keep pushing questions. Unless you start the conversation again. That last part is huge for you. Do not restart the talk. Do not say, "Can I just explain one thing?" That gives them a way back in. Here is where people wreck their own protection. They ask for a lawyer, then they keep talking. Because the silence feels awkward. They try to explain one small detail. They answer just one quick question. And now the protection gets messy. You need to understand something from Berkmer v. McCarty, too. A normal roadside stop does not always count as formal custody right away. That means you should not sit around waiting for some magic moment when rights appear. You invoke them early and clearly, so your position is on the record. Bad way. Most drivers say, "I don't need a lawyer because I didn't do anything." Then they answer 10 more questions and hand over the whole timeline. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I want a lawyer. I will not answer questions without my lawyer." Then the pressure to keep talking loses a lot of force. Let me show you exactly why this works. The officer's strongest tool is not always force. It's momentum. Question after question. Small agreement after small agreement. Your lawyer line breaks that rhythm. It tells everyone this is now a protected legal situation, not a casual back and forth. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. And for you, that means fewer chances to say something that sounds bad later on paper than it felt in the moment. Now the fourth line. A lot of you forget this one because you're focused on talking. But searches are where talk turns into evidence. Here's exactly what you say. "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Word for word. Keep it simple. Keep it calm. This line matters because officers often ask for consent when they do not yet have enough to force a search. They may say, "You don't mind if I take a quick look, right?" Or, "If you've got nothing to hide, let me just check." If you say yes, you can open a giant door. In Florida v. Camino, the Supreme Court said that when someone consents to a car search, that permission can extend to containers inside the car that could hold what they are looking for. In plain English, your little yes can become permission to open bags and boxes. That is why your no matters so much. Bad way. Most drivers say, "I guess that's fine, go ahead." Then a quick look turns into a full search of bags, compartments, and anything else they can reach. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Then the officer has to rely on actual legal authority instead of your permission. This line will not magically stop every search. If they claim they have legal grounds, they may still search, but your refusal protects you. It keeps you from volunteering away one of your strongest defenses. Former police officers have confirmed this works because consent is often the easiest shortcut for them. When you remove that shortcut, the whole game changes for you. And if they search anyway, your refusal matters. Most people already clicked away. If you're still here, you're in the top 10%, drop a comment saying "I'm still here," because the next part ties all these lines together. Miranda v. Arizona says, when police have you in custody, you have the right to stay silent and a lawyer. Salinas v. Texas says silence by itself may not protect you in a voluntary interview. Say the right out loud. Rodriguez v. United States says a traffic stop cannot be stretched longer than needed for the original reason. Be clear, be calm, be short, don't guess, don't explain, don't consent. Now let me show you exactly how this sounds in a real stop. You get pulled over at night. The officer takes your license, registration, and insurance. A few minutes later, he comes back smiling. He says, "You're good on the speed. We just want to talk. Where are you coming from?" The wrong way. You laugh because you're nervous. You say you were coming from your cousin's place. Then you change it to your friend's place because you forgot which story you started with. The officer notices. 10 minutes later, your bag is open, your phone is in his hand, and now you're explaining a message. The right way? You hand over documents. You ask, "Officer, am I being detained or am I free to leave?" If detained, I am invoking my right to remain silent. If pushing, I want a lawyer. If search requested, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches," then you stop. No jokes, no speeches. Subscribe right now because next week I'm dropping the video on what to say when cops claim they smell weed. Stay safe out there.